Today on Free Field Training, we're going to be talking about 5 tips for cops in the winter. Now, obviously, the old salt in me says, man, just don't get out of the car. Stay inside, crank the heat, do everything from the window if you can. Well, that's all well and good, but sometimes we just can't do that. There's stuff that we have to be outside for, and when you are outside and you're out there doing that stuff and it's 20 degrees or negative 20 degrees or negative 30 degrees or there's a foot of snow on the ground, I want you to be able to go to work and be comfortable, at least as comfortable as you can possibly be. I don't want anybody getting frostbite out there or dying from exposure if you're up in Alaska. So we're going to start off with the one thing that you really can't do without once it gets below freezing, and that is winter boots. Real, legit, honest winter boots. I've got the boots that I use in the winter right now down here. I have been using them at work, so you're going to have to wait while I put my gloves on. They get a little nasty, especially the bottoms. Now, winter boots for police work, what you're going to want is something that is waterproof. Not just the exterior is waterproof, but also a Gore-Tex liner. If it's produced properly, it's going to have insulation, a significant amount of insulation under the Gore-Tex liner. Now, the amount of insulation that you need is always open from debate from different people with different opinions who work in different areas, live in different areas, and have a different natural body heat. I tend to need less insulation. You may require more, but you want insulation that's kind of to your comfort. Now, in the winter, you definitely want a boot with some insulation, no matter how naturally warm you stay, no matter how warm-blooded you are, like me, because what you want is layers of protection. That's going to be an ongoing thing anytime we talk about gear in this video or on the channel. What you want is to have a leather boot that's as much leather as humanly possible. We can do with some nylon up here if we have to, but the bottom of the boot definitely has to be leather, and ideally you want an all-leather boot for more ankle support. We'll talk about that more in a bit. Then under that, you're going to have a Gore-Tex liner. So in case anything, snow, slush, mud, nastiness, wetness gets in between the stitches of the leather, and if you're conditioning them properly, they shouldn't, but things happen in the real world. If anything gets in there, the Gore-Tex stops it. And then under the Gore-Tex, you want insulation, and then you want the actual lining of the boot. What this means is that even if water gets into the leather of the boot, you don't have water, cold, icy water, sitting right up against a Gore-Tex membrane and then your foot, because you're going to conduct all of that heat out of your foot right into that cold water and be venting it out to the outside atmosphere, more or less. You always need to have a little bit of that insulation, even if you only have like a 200 gram insulation. These things go up to 12 or 1400 grams. I don't look into it because I don't need that much insulation in my boots. Now, the reason I harp on leather so much, especially in a winter boot, in the summer, you don't need as much leather unless your policy requires it. So a decent summer boot you can do with lots of nylon along the side, because that nylon gives you lots of breathability. You're going to get a lot of the water that's stuck inside the boot out if you've got that nylon on the exterior. In the winter, we're dealing with a situation where we almost always have pretty bad footing. So in the winter, we want lots of very thick leather in this upper so that if we get into some snow and our ankle starts to twist, this gives us the support to keep us from twisting our ankle and ending up losing time at work. And time is money when you're getting paid by the hour, which most of us are, more or less. Another thing to think about with winter boots when you compare them to your summer weight boots is the depth of the sole. You can see if we put this heel to heel here with a summer weight boot, that the summer weight boot sits significantly lower on the table than a winter weight boot. There's a couple of reasons for this. The first is that you want your winter weight boot to be higher because you've got more material between the ground and the concrete and the ice and the snow and the slush and everything that's cold and the bottom of your foot. The other is the lugs on the boot tend to be different, where your summer weight boots are going to be fairly thin lugged, and they're going to be made more for wet traction and traction on sand or loose materials. Your lugs on the bottom of the boots, on the sole of the boot, for a winter boot, you're going to want big, thick, heavy lugs. And they have micro-siping or texturizing that's going to give you traction on wet ground, and it's going to have those big lugs to push snow and slush off into and then have it shed back out of. Just like tires on your car, huge lugs are big on winter boots anytime you're trying to get traction in the winter and you're going to have snow and slush on the ground. Winter boots are absolutely huge for police work. If you're anywhere north of the Mason-Dixon line, and especially if you're in an area that gets below 0 temperatures, like here in Chicago, a lot of people try to get by without winter boots, and they end up moaning and groaning all winter, or even worse, if they end up in the middle of the woods chasing some idiot from a car wreck or chasing some idiot from a pursuit, they might end up getting frostbite, and that's never a good day. Anytime we're taking time off of work, not so great. Now, there's other things that we can do to keep ourselves safe from the cold out there. One last thing we're going to say about boots, though, you want to make sure when you try them on with your winter weight socks. So don't go putting the little white socks that you wear to the gym with gym shoes on when you go to the store to try on your boots. Wear whatever socks you're going to wear with these boots in the winter, try them on with those socks because it can make a very big difference. Now, on the layering of other things in the wintertime. You want to always dress in layers, but a lot of people get confused about the layers and which ones are important and how to size all of this stuff together. When you get dressed for work, before you even put your uniform shirt on, what you're going to want to put on is some type of moisture-wicking shirt. It's going to get any sweat that you do produce away from your skin. Then you put thermals on. Thermals kind of look like a mock turtleneck most of the time, like this. Long sleeves, so you're going to have your t-shirt, wick away everywhere from where you mostly sweat, because we're not really sweating on our forearms and stuff. And then you put these over the top. And what you want is something that gives you protection in the area, especially the area that isn't covered by your armor. We have to be aware that most of the time that we're going to be hopping out of the car on something that's urgent, we're probably not going to have time to put our coat on if we're not wearing the coat all of the time in the car. So most of the time when we're hopping out on a call, we're going to be hopping out going from the car into a building. We might not put our coat on. We want something that's going to give us enough insulation where we're not going to start freezing because we had to stand outside for 10 minutes and talk to somebody on a domestic. These thermals, they make thermals that have insulation. The insulation is heavier in the arms and shoulders where it's sticking out of your body armor. So you put your t-shirt on, throw these over the top, then you put your uniform shirt over the top. Again, we're going to be looking for high quality, long sleeve uniform shirts. You're going to want something that's got a comfortable material in the collar. You can see this collar here. You got a nice, smooth material in this collar, which is going to rub up against, this is the area that's rubbing up against your neck, obviously. And you don't want things wearing through your thermals or your thermals wearing through your shirt. It's a problem with some of your cheaper uniform shirts out there. And you want to have it made of a material that's thick enough where when you take a tumble in the snow and land on concrete, you're not ripping holes through the arms, at least not the first time out. One last thing with these, when you're buying uniform shirts for the summer, or if you're working in a warm environment, you don't have to worry too crazy much about sizing. You can just kind of size it. You put all your stuff on, you put your vest on and your shirt over the top in case, even if you wear an external vest, in case you have to wear it underneath for a day if your external vest gets dirty or messed up or something like that. But when you're going to work in an environment where it's wintertime, when you're going to buy those long sleeve shirts, buy them a size to a size and a half, and for some people, if you're a really small person, 2 sizes bigger. And the reason for this is very simple. You're going to be putting a lot of layers on. Especially if you're trying to meet policy in the wintertime, things can't be showing. You can't just be throwing extra, jackets and stuff on underneath your winter coat. You're going to have room under that uniform shirt to put your moisture wicking shirt, your thermals, and then maybe another, mock turtleneck to add extra insulation layers, and then your uniform shirt over the top, and then your vest over the top of that, or vice versa, depending on where you wear your vest. Same thing with your pants. I always buy my pants a half size bigger. I'm a size 36, I always get a size 37. That's the great thing about some of the higher end brands is that you can get those half sizes larger and it leaves you plenty of room underneath the pants to put thermals or long johns or whatever you want underneath, so that way you're insulated even in the areas that your coat isn't covering. So talking about coats, again, you want to buy them big. Same thing with anything you might have to wear over the coat. Things like your high-vis vests, you want to be able to fit those over the coat. You need to buy those high-vis vests enormous if you're working in a winter environment. With coats, you need them to be waterproof. Gore-Tex is an added bonus, but they need to be waterproof so that if these get wet, you get hit with some snow or some slush, or you fall in the slush, you're going to be able to just shed that water off the coat. You can just wipe it off and you're not getting wet, because wetness is your enemy in the wintertime. It assuredly is. You get wet, it gets through your uniform shirt into the thermals, and you're going to be miserable the entire time you're out there. So either a really close-knit nylon that repels water, or a Gore-Tex liner, or some people will take even the cheap coats that you can buy from a Army surplus store or Uniform Supply, the $50, $60 coat, and they'll take camp spray waterproofer, and they'll spray the shoulders and the arms of the jacket to give themselves that waterproof ability. Whatever you have to do, you want to stay warm. Another thing you have to think about is being able to vary the amount of insulation that you have in the coat depending on how cold it is outside. You can get coats that are very, very warm, and they're just very, very warm. There's no taking stuff out. You can get coats that aren't super warm but are a decent shell, but they don't have a lot of insulative value. What you want for patrol, especially in an area that gets seasonal differences, where in the wintertime you can be in the 40, 50 degree range, or you could be in the negative 30 degree range like where I'm at, you want something with a zip out liner. Lots of companies make jackets with zip out liners. Basically, it's just like an extra quilted vest or jacket inside of the coat, and then they snap into place on the insides of the coat. This one just happens to be a reversible high-vis liner. So you unsnap it from the collar and unzip down the sides. As you can see here, you can have a fairly thick, fairly decent winter coat, or you can zip the liner in and have something that'll get you good all the way down to negative 30 degrees as long as you have your thermals on. These types of liners are absolutely fantastic. If you're buying a coat that can come with a liner and it's an option and you're going back and forth of whether to get it, if it gets below zero where you're working, get the liner. For one day a year that you end up using it, you're going to love it. These are a godsend for patrolmen. Finally, as far as gear is concerned and layering up, we got to talk about gloves. You can already see the gloves that I use for the winter here are pre-set up to be layered, but I'll pull them out so you guys can see. This is kind of a thin, very thin, almost neoprene glove. It's actually touchscreen capable, so I can use this on the terminal, on the screen at work, in order to use the mouse if the screen on my terminal at work worked, which it currently doesn't. But these gloves, these little thin neoprene gloves, you've probably seen them. You can get them at any sporting goods store, most big box stores. You get a little neoprene glove that's very thin, that has touchscreen capability, and you can just leave these on when you're in the car in the winter. So you don't have to take these on and off if it's really, really frigidly cold outside. And then over the top of these, you get, again with the theme here of layering and extra sizes, you get a larger glove, or in my case, I prefer these hunting mittens. You can get them in black, but I find that by the time it gets cold enough out for me to need the hunting mittens, no one is really caring about uniforming anymore. So when you put the mittens over the top, you still have fine motor control with your fingers. I can still use all the things that I need to use all of the tools, and then if it gets super, super cold, or I'm out directing traffic, or I'm out on a scene, we've got a barricaded gunman or something like that, I can close up a large portion of the glove and keep most of my fingers warm. Now, obviously, the way this works, it gives me the ability to keep my trigger finger out if I want to, but then all I have that's exposed to the elements that I have to worry about, keeping another hand on or blowing on, is going to be just this one finger. One of the things that we have to think about with gloves that a lot of people don't think about, and the reason that I like this mitten system instead of having a larger glove sitting system and having to cut a finger off of it, is the ability to use the tools that we use at work. One of the big ones, the hardest ones to use with winter gloves on, is our taser. I took the cartridge off, obviously, for safety here. But you need to be able to get your finger into that little tiny trigger guard in order to activate the taser. And a lot of big, heavy winter gloves won't allow you to do that. So after you buy your thin gloves, make sure you can operate the taser with them if you can. That's awesome. Then you get your big mittens. Make sure you can still operate the taser even with the big mittens as long as the back is off of them. These can buy you hours and hours and hours. If you know you're going to be out there 6, 7, 8 hours, if you're on a barricaded gunman or something like that, a lot of these mittens have a space on the back. Probably still have the one in here from last time, where you can put hot hands in, literally what they're designed for. So this little zipper, you unzip it, break open your hot hands, toss it in there, and now the part of your body that is the hardest to keep warm, your little fingers, are sitting there with their own little space heater. This thing is absolutely awesome. I've had to be outside for 6, 7, 8 hours before when I was on SWAT. These saved my fingers. There's guys blowing on their hands and sticking them in their vest and stuff like that. To be able to just do this and be able to function like I have to on a containment situation or when we're waiting to go inside is great. And the ability to just take this and go, and it magnet mounts back, and be able to do everything I need to do, even better. Finally, our fifth thing, let's talk about the tactics of working in the winter. There are very real wintertime tactical concerns. And the best way to solve these, as with most issues with law enforcement that require us to work in adverse conditions, is with teamwork and mass. Mass meaning how many bodies we have to accomplish a task. If you have to be outside for 4 hours, you know it's a fatality accident, you're going to have to be out on that accident for a long period of time. You park a squad in the middle of the street, you do the whole, let's put crime scene tape around 2 poles so we don't have to be out of the car any more than we have to, directing traffic from every direction. We use our cones, like we talked about in the directing traffic video, and we rotate who's in the car and who's out of the car. So we crank the heat up in the car, one person goes outside, they direct traffic, do what they have to do for 10 minutes, clap, hop, one person hops in, that person hops back out. Now the person that's been sitting inside the nice warm car is outside directing traffic. They do 10, 15 minutes. The person on the inside, once they're warmed up, they switch again. And this way you can do directing traffic, you can process a crime scene, you can be, if you get yourself into a good situation on a barricaded gunman where you can park a car in an alley and be able to peek around the corner, you can hop between in the car and out of the car, and you can constantly man that position with everybody still having the use of their fingers, which is fantastic. So that's my 5 tips for cops in the winter, especially in a really cold place like here. After the video, we're going to take comments and questions from the Instagram live stream. That's why there's a little bumper at the end of this. But please leave down in the comments down below your comments and suggestions about your tips for cops in the winter. I'm always happy to learn new ways to stay warm. Until next week, you guys be safe. Take care of each other. Not one thing about drinking coffee to stay warm. I say I did pretty well on that one. Pull you guys off here and see what everybody has to say. I saw lots of commenting, or at least people waving and saying hi. So we're going to go to the top, see if anybody has anything topical. Landon0101 says, those hot hands adhesive body warmers, stick one on your pec and one on your oblique. All right, so I've had bad experiences with these hot hand things if I'm not careful with them. One of the bad experiences I've had is with them breaking open. And the other one is some of them get really, really warm. So if you're going to use hot hands and you're going to stick them places, make sure you stick them on top of clothing, not directly to your skin, and somewhere you're going to be able to get to it if it gets a little too hot. Nelsong0 says, a big tip would be get a coffee cup like Tommy. Yeah, this thermos coffee cup, this thing is a lifesaver. An absolute lifesaver. I love this thing. It keeps my coffee warm all shift. Gordon Rayo says, keep your face warm. Get a balaclava or neck sleeve that can come up. Yeah, balaclavas are great in the winter. It's something I just didn't think to put in this. Probably because mine's sitting in my duty bag right now inside of my hat. But hats all seem like a regular thing. I want to give people advice about things that they might not think about, like the sizing or layering of gloves, stuff like that. Springfield Mafioso says, give us boot models. The boots that I have here today are both from Hayeks. So these are the Hayeks Air Power Winters. These have like 500 grams of insulation and a Gore-Tex liner and a full leather boot exterior. They're pretty much an ideal wintertime duty boot. There's big lugs on them. That's why I'm using them for the video. This is one of my favorite pairs of winter duty boots, and they're also not really thick and chunky and clunky, which is a big problem with winter boots. They start getting enormous when companies start building them and overbuilding them. So these are pretty slim and trim, but they still manage to keep you warm, which is a big advantage, especially the lug soles. Lots of winter boots aren't this good. And the other ones, the summer boots that I showed, are Hayex's Black Eagle Tactical 2.0. So it's like an athletic shoe style of boot, but it's a leather lower, it's got good ankle support, and it's Gore-Tex lined. So not cheap, but a very, very solid boot. Kyle Boswell says, recently I've switched to a weight-bearing outer vest. The problem is that I can't wear a jacket and still access my equipment. Leaving it unzipped looks sloppy. Other than UA, any suggestions? Okay, so here's the overall problem, is that you're not buying the coat big enough. And I know that's a big deal. You end up spending, a few $100s to switch to a weight-bearing external carrier. And the problem up here in the frozen north is that coats are really expensive too. You have to buy your coat larger and thicker and warmer than you need it to be. That's why all of these layers. I mean, you wouldn't ordinarily, when I just go out and I'm going to the mall, or even if I was going for a hike, I wouldn't wear all of these layers, but I have to be able to leave my coat open in order to access the stuff in my vest when I'm at work. We don't really close, at least I don't really close and zip the coat up very much unless I'm standing out on the street directing traffic. So what I do is I buy coats way bigger. So this coat is from Proper, and it is a size extra large. I am not a size extra large person, but that fits over my weight-bearing equipment. So my vest has a bunch of pouches on the front. If you follow me on Instagram, you know that. Got a bunch of pouches on the front. This fits over it, and I can just barely zip it up the front. Now, if I leave the liner in it and leave it unzipped, I can stay as warm as I need to be. Unfortunately, the solution for that problem involves spending more money. I'm sorry to tell you. At least the best solution. If anybody's got a better solution than that, I am all ears. Gilbert Adme 125 says he missed all the tips and just joined the end to watch the exit tapings. Well, it's okay because I leave these up on Instagram. It's going to be up for like 24 hours. And then you're going to see most of it up on YouTube later. So follow me across platforms so you don't miss anything. Big Bird Actual says keep a hand warmer in your vest shirt pocket to keep non-gel pens, test kits, etc. from freezing. I don't even keep test kits, like narcotics test kits, on my person. So that's not a thing for me. And I just use gel ink pens, and it solves the problem. I will, however, keep hot hands on my person. What I'll normally do is I'll stage them in my coat. So I'll have my hot hands and my gloves all staged in the coat with my hat and the balaclava and all of that stuff. And then when I get out of the car, all I have to do is grab the coat. That should have been one of my suggestions. Well, we'll put it at the end. Have fun, man. And that is the end of the stream. So thank you, everybody, for stopping by. Hopefully here I've got enough time where I can do my updated duty bag video before we leave for the night on the live stream. So I'm going to shut this live stream down and probably start a whole nother one up. Not sure if I'm going to put on Instagram or YouTube yet. We'll see. Till next week, you guys be safe, take care of each other, and keep that coffee warm. Hey, thanks for watching Free Field Training on YouTube. While you're here, check out one of our other videos, or head on over to the Patreon and see how you can get your name put on your videos like these fine folks over here. All the links are in the description, of course. We'll see you guys next time.